the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
Good morning, everybody. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're about 2 weeks now past the longest day on June the 21st. And at this time of the year, on livestock farms and on many farms across the country, work starts really early because many farmers make the most of the long days of daylight at this time of the year. And Hyash is no exception, although technically we're not a livestock farm or a crop production farm anymore. There's still lots of work going on the farm, and one of which is grass conservation. And we start mowing now at this time of the year once the grass, the pollen has come off the grass and seed production has actually started and the seeds start to drop on the ground off the hay. That tells us that much of the nutrition in the grass has fallen away. We don't need to fatten the cattle or produce lots of milk. So the grass here, home produced grass, is used very much for the livery business. And a main problem with the horses here at the farm is they get too fat on the hay if it's got a lot of nutrition in it. So we wait until the nutrition drops away, and this is the time of year, early July, that we start mowing the hay. So Neil has already been and gone. He's out mowing, and I hope to take the recorder up there now because he'll probably finish just when Matthew's arriving later on this morning. And so it's an early start, and for many people 6 o'clock in the morning is quite early. But I have to tell you, several of the liveries here, the girls that look after their horses, have already been to Hyash Farm, put the horses out on the fields, mucked out, scrubbed up in the coffee room, so makeup on, and they've already been and gone. And it's only 6 o'clock in the morning, so the farmers aren't the only one to start work early on. Anyway, enough of that from me. So I'm in the truck, Rat's just hopped in, start the engine, seatbelt on, handbrake off, and we'll go and see if we can find Neil, because the mowing takes place at huge speed, which is interesting in itself. But what I'm particularly interested in is the bird life that follows the mower. It normally happens at this time of the year. Close the door and we can have anything, so it's unpredictable what we're going to see. So fingers crossed we'll get a treat from some of the predatory birds, and maybe even the swallows will be following the mower. Away we go. I've just arrived at Cantley Hill, 25 hectares of grass for this year's hay crop, and Neil's already done the headlands. That's the edges of the field, and he's going down the centre of the field, which we start mowing because of all the wildlife here at the farm. We start in the middle of the field when we can, once we've done the edges, so that any wildlife that's here gets pushed to the side. And I can see where he's working, although he's out of sight, because there's a very large flock of it looks like lesser blackback gulls, as though they're following a plough. Well, I hope he's not ploughing this morning. He should be mowing, so the field is pretty large. So what we're going to have to do is drive round the edge, which is what we're doing, and see if we can catch up with him, and see if we can get a close view of some of those lesser blackback gulls. They're not all lesser blackback gulls. I can see a red kite, quite close. It's mixed in with the lesser blackbacks, which are pretty big in themselves, and the kite is sort of over the top of them all. and just following Neil as though he's ploughing and the kite's looking for worms, which it isn't, is looking for small mammals. There's Neil. He's still quite a distance. This is a fairly large field. It's got a hill in the middle of it, so sometimes Neil disappears from sight completely. Rat's on my lap, and Neil's now about 150 yards away, and we should start to hear him with the large capacity mower. It's doing just over 3 metres, so it's about 12 foot, 3.6 metres cutting, and he's travelling along. We'll see if we can get quite close. Rat's just put the windscreen wipers going, trying to get out of the window. Let's open the other window up. And he's got the best part of 50 lesser blackback gulls almost touching the mower, and they're looking for any small mammals that unfortunately get killed. Sometimes you can't help it. Larger mammals can get involved in the hay and get chopped up. It's a pretty quick death, but nevertheless it does happen, and we're very sensitive here. We wait, as well as waiting for the nutrition in the grass to drop away, for the skylarks to have finished nesting. So he's now at the end of the field, and we'll sweep round and follow the tractor. Let me look at the speedo, 11 miles an hour. And I'll just pop the microphone out of the window for just a second so you can hear the sound, which you can probably hear about a mile away at least. And that's what attracts the red kite. The red kite are feeding. I think there's 2 of them here, and they're down the other end of the field. Very noisy. Neil won't be able to hear any of that. The cab insulation on the modern tractors is very efficient indeed, and there's a big swath of grass, so the mower has about 12 discs in it, and he's just lifted up at the end of the field and going to turn round and do another, what we call a bout, which takes him back down the field. And the hay is laid down beautifully with little gaps in for the tractor wheels to come down the field the next time. So he's not actually running on the crop at all when it's been mown. And it's looking down, it looks really neat. It's quite a good crop, despite some of the field actually dying much earlier on. On the hilltops here, they're very light, sandy soil, very gravelly. And we're following the tractor, so the gulls are in front of us, and one's just come down and disappeared. One of the lesser blackbacks has disappeared with a small mammal in its beak, chased off by some of the other ones, and we're now coming down to the end of the field where the kite are feeding. There we are, an early morning treat for you. I'll go back to the farm, just do a few odd jobs, then Matthew will arrive later on this morning, and we'll continue the podcast once Matthew arrives.
Well, I have to say, Chris, thank you for doing the early start.
Yes, well, early for some people, and it's kind of normal on farms at this time of the year. And now, Neil, when I was here much earlier, was busy mowing the hay, and this is the hay that he was mowing just 3 or 4 hours ago, and it's now being turned because we've got a hot day. We've checked the weather forecast with the local weather people, and they've given us 5 or 6 days dry, hot, warm weather. So the old motto, although this is a modern way of making hay, is make hay while the sun shines. It's exactly what we're doing, and instead of turning it by fork, which would have been done in the 1800s, even earlier, and the hay was stored in a hay stack, we now bale the hay. And this, at the moment, we're doing something called tedding it. And you can see that after the hay is all laid out in nice neat windrows, then at the moment it's being lifted up into the air, thrown at great speed, and that machine's not far off doing an acre in a minute. To give you an idea, it's 12 metres wide. It's a 250 horsepower tractor on the front of it, and there are 12 rotors there.
And here it comes.
Here it comes.
Those rotors are going around it very quickly, and
Yes.
there's a lot of dust being kicked up as
Yes, yep, that's the pollen, any remains of the pollen off the grass. So if you've had hay fever, and I hope you haven't, you'd be sneezing at this point. So he's going along and actually turning it and making the most of the sunshine to dry the hay as quickly as possible. Although you do trust the weather forecast, it's always a risky business having hay out in the field. And this, we're making hay, not haylage. And so this would be too dry already at this stage to make haylage from it. It's dried in about 6 or 7 hours in this intense heat. And so this will be turned about 3 times in total, and then we'll have a big baler come in to make big Heston bales about 8 feet long, weighing just over half a ton each bale, and that will be wrapped up and then carted into the barn straight away, and that'll be a job for me.
Is this a better year for haymaking?
No, it's pretty poor. The yield is about half the normal volume of grass. So you can see we're going up the hill at a huge rate of knots, and the machine is picking the hay up. Any damp hay there is being thrown further because it's a little bit heavier, and that means it lands on top. Oh, there's a red kite just went into the oak tree up there. So we were driving about on the field.
You saw some earlier, didn't you?
Yes, I saw when he was actually mowing first thing this morning. Eventually there was 5 kites with the mower. So everything is done at high speed these days. Years ago, well, when I was born, there were 31 workers on the farm, and now there's just Daniel, Neil, and what's left of my farming career. I kind of scratch about during the daytime and try and keep out of everybody's way. But you can see how aggressive that machine is going through the rotors there. And yep, the hay's landing on the ground and it's all fluffed up, and the warm air can actually pass through it, but it's got to be dry before it goes into those big bales. At about 14-15% moisture would be the ideal, otherwise it can heat up. And hay stacks years and years ago, if you did happen to put the hay into a stack and it was slightly damp, it would heat up. You were lucky if it just went jet black like coal, and if you're unlucky, the whole stack would catch on fire, which seems to be a strange thing to happen. And I've kept, as a memento, something called a hay knife, where you would stand on the haystack and put this large knife down, which is shaped like a big raindrop, and it's razor sharp edge, and the hay would be cut by hand in the stack, thrown onto a tumbrel and taken to the various livestock all about the farm. So there's lots of ways of wrapping the hay up. You can use round bales, Hestons. You can also use for smaller horse users. If we were selling it still, it would go into the conventional small bales and wrapped up like that. But this is the modern way of doing it. It's very, very fast indeed. So there we are. And he's almost finished since we arrived. This is a 10-acre block of hay out in the full sunshine, and he's nearly finished it. Unbelievable. Well, for me anyway, it is. It's normal for the modern generation of farmers, and the sat-nav on the tractor is spacing it out exactly 12 metres. The tractor will turn round at the end and then drop the tedder back down on the ground. There it goes, lifted up, and big sweep round now, and then return back down the field for the last bout. There we are, modern haymaking. Another day or two, the baler will be here, and that will all be over for another year.
Perfect haymaking weather. It wasn't that way a few days ago when I came and saw Chris in the farmyard. The rain was falling. We're sitting in the farm truck because there's a bit of rain falling quite unseasonably. And look at all that mud. Look, you should be ashamed of yourself, Chris.
Should be.
On the farmyard, on the ground there.
Hey, Matthew, this is the star of the show, the mud, this year. It's been in really short supply. We're sort of semi-drought stricken over in the eastern counties. We've had some recent rain. But the mud is here right through the dry period because there's a tap just near to us, and the girls have water in their stables, and they empty their buckets here on the farmyard under my instruction. So there's a wet area with some soil on it, which I had. I wasn't allowed to play with mud as a child. I got my clothes too dirty and I got filthy. But I've made up for it now by having mud here, and that's for the swallows. Which build their nest cups out of little pellets of mud. And as I said, we've got a surprise here, because in the last few days, we're middle of June and after now, we have house martins visiting this muddy patch in the farmyard. I don't know where they've come from. Normally, house martins, sand martins arrive in the UK first, followed by the swallows, and then house martins number 3. Swifts are usually a little bit later, about mid-May onwards, so they're not closely related to the other 3 species. But the house martins have come here very late, so I have a question in my head. Are they youngsters, which often arrive after the main influx of adult house martins? Or has it been the result of a building nearby, perhaps in the edge of Norwich, being netted, and to dissuade the birds from nesting there so that the building could be painted? And I can't answer that, but what has happened is absolute delight. First of all, one appeared, and they're very distinctive compared to swallows. They've got a really vivid white rump, so they come down, they sort of waddle on the ground, they don't walk very well, they're really aerial birds flying quite high up. Swallows low down, house martins and sand martins the middle layer, and swifts over the top of all of them, so you can kind of tell a little bit from that, but pure white underneath, and then this sort of gunmetal blue black on the back of them, and not brown like the sand martins we visited in the quarry, or with the red chin strap or chestnut chin strap that swallows have. So we've got lots of swallows here. The first ones are already hatched and left the nest, and will come back and roost in the buildings at night. The house martins are different because they nest on the outside of buildings, which always intrigues me, because in the UK, where did they nest before we had a ready supply of houses with eaves for them to nest under? Was it in old caves, perhaps, which wouldn't be in this part of the UK? Was it on in quarries or somewhere like that? There are evidence that you have other nesting places for them, but nevertheless I just love to see them here at the farm. I'm totally surprised, because when I was a child, there are 2 farm cottages right at the entrance of the farm here, and you couldn't fit another house martin's nest in the complete way round the 2 cottages, and they're quite large cottages. There'd been 200 or 300 nests there, all made out of these mud pellets. The nest is a quarter of a globe, and it's usually tacked against the wall just under the eaves of the cottages, usually about 3 to 4 inches. Then the first pellets are stuck to the brick. If there's a nail there, that helps them to sort of key onto the brickwork, and then they build up from there. So it's a complete quarter globe with a little slot at the top, and then house martins Rather like the swallows, will gather feathers, perhaps a little bit of dried grass, line the inside of the nest, and then lay 4 to 5 almost pure white eggs in there. Incubation 14, 15 days. But the mystery still isn't solved. Where were they taking the mud to? And they were coming back so quickly, it's got to be quite close to where we're sitting.
And it's not those traditional places at the entrance to the farm?
No, I've got about 12 house martin false nest boxes around the perimeter of the cottages, and they weren't using any of those, so it's got to be quite close. And I'm just fascinated to know where they were taking high ash mud to. I don't mind the mud disappearing, he says with a smile on his face. It's just lovely to see them and get up close-up views. They're completely unfazed by horses walking past them, people walking past them, lorries and tractors, and they would still come down onto the ground, usually one, and then the others would swoop over the top, and then they'd all come down together, gather mud together, and generally fly off, and it's just lovely to see them.
Fair to say house martin numbers have suffered even more than, say, swallows and sand martins.
Yes, it's a huge worry. We're thinking it's their overwintering quarters. We don't have a great deal of information about where they spend our winter. So they migrate up, come across the Sahara. They're obviously down in Central Africa somewhere, but a few years back I visited the Gambia and the neighbouring country, Senegal. I went there to actually see pelicans and some of the kingfisher species on the sort of mangrove swamps that are there, and there were house martins flying over. It was a winter visit to that country, so they obviously go down quite a distance, but they could have been continental, say Germany or further east even than that. They could have been swallows from other parts of Europe, actually going further south than our native the ones that breed here. But it's quite a thing for them to migrate all the way up. They're tiny little birds, about a third smaller than a swallow, about similar size to the sand martins that we visited a few weeks back. But nevertheless, quite a surprise, Matthew. And just to see them, and when they're back, and once this cooler weather stops and we have some more proper warmth, then I'll get the cameras back here and see if I can actually capture them gathering the mud. But they've legged it at the moment. That's typical when we come to see what they're up to. They're not here. But
it's not putting off the sparrows that are nesting in the holes at the top of your barn there.
No, they're doing really, really well. So are the swallows. Now we've had the moisture, there'll be more insects flying about, and that's aerial plankton that all those species, the swifts, which are in really short supply this year here in East Anglia, the swallows, the house martins and the sand martins, they all need that aerial plankton, and that's why they all have to migrate and leave our shores late autumn onwards. There's no flying insects really, so they have to migrate back south again. Although I'd love them to stay here year round, that doesn't happen, so there we are. But still a mystery for me. Where are those house martins nesting close to High Ash Farm or on High Ash Farm? Yet to discover that.
Maybe we should call for Miss Marple.
Yes, I think so. A bit of investigation needed.
We've got a couple of emails to look at in a moment. First though, Chris, we're almost on the cusp of the summer holidays for the children, aren't we? The long harvest holidays, it used to be called.
Yes, I used to get probably 8 weeks, and I can remember harvest would be underway at the beginning of them with the winter barley, and then it would go through to the spring barley next of all and finish off with the wheat and the rye. And so I'd always be trying to find odd jobs to do, riding on the binder to start with, and then the combine later on, and then eventually to have my own combine here and learn all the settings of it. So always a busy time of year. And yes, so now the whole farm is very different. There's a fabulous crop of spring barley right beside us, and I was just watching a deer running across it just now, just about the head coming out above the crop, because we're into July now, and everything's growing away at a huge rate of knots. But I've got something special for you to do this morning, and if we just walk on a little bit, each year over the last 7 or 8 years I've done a teasel walk here at the farm, and last year for the first time we also did a teasel maze, and I might get you to open that next week. We'll see what the weather's like for you, but first of all I've got to hand you a pair of scissors.
Ceremonial shears.
Yes, and you can see there's a lovely track through here. We're on the eastern side of Barnfield. It's a 30-acre field, and there's 2 acres of teasels down one side of it, and it's quite a walk. It's good 400 metres long, so it's a quarter of a mile long, and the teasels are now coming into flower. So if you're interested in different sorts of butterflies that will feed on the teasels, and you have a camera, you can get some wonderful face-to-face shots with peacock butterflies, red admirals, painted ladies if you're lucky, and some of the more common ones, the large whites, the small whites, green-veined whites are all here, and lots of meadow browns as well, because there's some grass growing here as well. And it's just absolutely glorious. So if you choose a sunny day, and the beauty of it is it's free. Normally I put some teasel walk signs up around a farm from one of the car parks here at High Ash Farm. There's also, if they get full, there's the Roman Town car park right down on the west side of High Ash, where you can park, but you do have to pay there, and High Ash car parking's free. So there we are. In front of us are 2 stakes in the ground.
Sirloin or T-bone?
Yes, I knew you'd come out with some jokes like that. Anyway, what is here is a red ribbon across the track, because each year, following us, once this is opened, last year we had well over 2,000 walkers came through here. It was in place, the walk itself was in place for about 12 weeks. Not just for when the teasels are flowering, but after they flower they produce seed, and there's large flocks of goldfinches come. So I think without any further ado you should snip the tape, and we'll formally call it open.
I formally declare the Teasel Walk on High Ash Farm 2026 officially open. Billing and cooing, the pigeons of High Ash Farm, among the cast of characters that we meet each week.
And I'm the next character that you're likely to meet on the Countryside podcast, and we've got a small favour to ask. There are certain costs involved which we can't avoid. What we're asking for is a small contribution to help the running costs of this podcast.
And you can find all the details on the High Ash Farm website, and you can make a monthly or one-off payment. Everything's gratefully received, and let's keep this marvellous slice of wildlife podcasting going with Chris Skinner and the pigeons.
Why not? Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. Well snipped. Beautiful, and you've done it at one end of the lovely red ribbon. You're very well trained, Matthew, because you know what farmers are like. I can use this again next year now without a knot in the middle of it. Oh dear. So teasels are wonderful plants, and really unusual if we walk up to one. They're not actually particularly friendly. You can actually look on the underside. Ouch! Underside of the leaves.
Yes, there are thorns all the way up.
Look at that. They are downward spacing thorns. The stalk is the same. and you get to the top, and then the little teasel head itself, which is now forming, is also covered in little spikes. Now there's a separate species here, which is some are growing here, which are called fuller's teasel, and a fuller was somebody who finished off cloth. That was the name given to them. So it was also used for finishing fine cloths. Some of the Yorkshire cloth factories still have teasel carding machines where you could raise the pile in certain fabrics, and teasels, particularly fuller's teasel, were used. The scientific name of these is Dipsarchus phelonium, and literally Dipsarchus means to drink. And you can see, although we've not had any rain for the last few days, you can see the leaves where they join the stalk are really unusual in that they cup round the stalk completely. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cups like this down this particular one. This is only about 4'6", nearly 5 foot high at the moment. And when it's finished growing and in full flower, which it will be shortly, it will be a good 2 meters, maybe 8, maybe 9 feet tall, getting on for 3 meters. But you can see where these leaves join the stalk all the way down. And coincidentally, look what's crawling up in an anti-clockwise direction. Bindweed.
Bindweed.
Yes, the farmer's bane. Look, and your different colour forms. There's a pure white bindweed flower there. But where this joins the stem, you can actually look in, and there's quite a lot of water in there.
Lovely reservoir of water. That keeps the plant going.
And people will cut the whole plant, tip the plant upside down and collect the water, and it's used particularly if you've got allergies or eye irritation, and you can still buy teasel water as a sort of an alleviant. It's sort of, I'm not sure that it works, but the thought is that there's something special about the water.
Nature's Optrex.
Yes, it is, yes. And you can see, it's actually drawn blood on me, that teasel. And here goes the bindweed. I hadn't noticed it's actually gone up 18 inches already. And by the time that's finished climbing, and notice it's thigmotropismic on one side of the bindweed only. So that side is a side that curls round and round. Thigma just means touch in Latin, and a tropism is a response of a plant to any stimuli. So thigma is the proper name for coiling round like that. So I love these big words. Yes.
Very impressed. So come and see this wonderful natural display, the teasels and the little walkway right through the middle of them, and they're big as well. They're bigger than a person. And the children will love it as we get into the school holidays.
Yes, you can come bring them there to Hyash Farm and say, get lost. Yes, after you've had the children a few days. Yes, that will be a term that's used more than once, I'm sure, for busy mums. But it's lovely, and it's very safe as well, and a great chance to be face to face with some of the wonderful and colourful species of butterfly at this time of the year.
Let's bring you some more of our emails. And Phoebe says, after the wonderful commentary on the sand martins at Hyash Farm a few weeks back, I was interested to hear Chris mentioning hoodies when discussing corvids. This was back in May. Here in Berlin, we're the other side of the Elbe River. So, as in the northern UK, we have only hoodies here. Endlessly fascinating to watch, so skillful, proud and elegant in their grey waistcoats. I thought Chris would have a laugh at the video that I'm sending here at now the diametrically opposite time of year, so therefore might help to cool down if it's too hot to work.
Yes, I've seen the video, and I'm a little bit suspicious of this video that it's actually an AI version. So this is beginning to happen, and we've seen the hoodie actually doing amazing things, and I'm uncertain. Although I have seen our local crows, carrion crows, picking up a round of stale bread and dipping it in the water and taking it out and eating it. But there's lots of AI beginning to occur, and people are sending the images off to various friends and relations, and it just doesn't add up sometimes. So I'm really suspicious of some of the things that I'm being shown.
Never believe anything on the internet, apart from this podcast.
Apart from this, of course, yeah. The things like skylarks flying upside down, well, that doesn't happen.
Tina Woods says, wow, I wish we were living closer to your farm, Chris, to hear your wonderful words describing the beauty of pyramidal orchids and such and everything else. It starts my Sunday with a hearty smile. Have a great week, she says.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, and as we've been round the farm this morning, there's always something new for me to see and to share with Matthew, and then to all our lovely podcast listeners. And it's always just such a delight and a treat because we never know quite what we're going to find. So nothing's planned out at all. Just the questions arrived at the end of the podcast.
People do love coming to visit the farm from a long way off, with the podcast, of course, going to all four corners of the planets these days. Lynn Dutton, I don't know which part of the planet she's from, but she says she's coming to visit the farm soon.
Yes.
So we wish her well with that.
Yes, we do, and very kindly she's left a phone number, so I'll make sure she's furnished with a farm map with all the walks on it, and so she'll be able to enjoy that, and she'll just be in here in time to visit the pyramidal orchids before they all go over. Once they're finished flowering, they produce seed within 10 to 14 days. Absolutely. Nature at this time of the year moves on at such a pace, and we'll be into autumn and clocks changing before we know it.
If you want to see what's happening on the farm, there are regular updates of photos and videos on the Facebook site, High Ash Farm Facebook. You can send your questions and comments, chris@highashfarm.com, and there's the website as well, highashfarm.com/podcast, and you can find out ways of donating. And to everyone who already has donated, a big thank you.
Yes, it helps to keep us going, keeps our feet on the ground, because there's costs with the podcast we just can't avoid. So it's nice to stay at least on an even keel and not get into debt. But nevertheless, we just love doing it and sharing the East Anglian countryside, whoever cares to listen.
It's the month of Julius Caesar now.
Yes, we're in there. Yes.
Et tu, Brute.
Don't turn round. You'll get bee sting in the back. Yes.